this is going to sound a little geeky, but when we were growing up, we used to have LAN parties.
Or affordable ones are Quebec and Newfoundland. And the problem is they last forever. So I think I have 300. Hi, I'm Tim Somerville.
And I'm Michael Dempsey, thanking you for joining us again for another episode of Off the Market with Team Somerville.
You know, I always think that while we're doing these, we're going to run out of topics. You just can't. I mean,
No.
there's so many things that we can talk about, needlepoint. Okay, maybe not needlepoint. Okay.
To be honest, I'm always worried about trying to keep it within a time frame.
Sure.
We don't want to ramble on, and
Okay.
because we could talk forever.
Thanks for joining us on Team Somerville. Yeah, you're on. Okay, so let's get right into it. You want to start?
Sure.
Okay, great.
So I'd like to start with a great topic that I think people would enjoy. I want to challenge you. It's called the death of the Sunday drive.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is in some areas, we're seeing, again, in some areas, we're seeing Sunday drives are less and less. So it gets us thinking, what are some of those characteristics or aspects that are causing people to not go out for that nice Sunday drive? So when you were growing up, did you ever hop in the car and...
Saturdays.
Yeah,
We
Saturdays.
usually did it on Saturdays.
Okay.
One of the reasons is where I was in Ontario, we had Mennonites in an area called St. Jacobs.
Okay.
And again, so we would go out on Saturday and do the stockade. And then actually, if we did go out on Sunday, we'd watch them, horse and buggy, go to the church. So Saturday was always good because it just seemed like there was more going on. Sunday, of course, yes. Again, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We still had those as well. How about you?
Yes, well, I remember, if we had a good week, and what I mean by good week is we did our chores, we behaved, all that good stuff. We go for nice Sunday drives, and a lot of times we would end up at your typical soft serve ice cream place, or we'd go for Dairy Queen in Grand Bay. That was kind of the most visited place for us.
Perfect.
But yeah, I remember that all the time. We're over Sunday drives. Now, we joke, we jest. We get stuck behind a lot of the slower drivers, and it just happens to be on a Sunday. So, of course, we throw it out there, silly Sunday drivers, But, again, some of the things people are faced with every day is, gas prices. And I know that recently there's been a little bit of, the government's stepping in, cutting some excise tax, things like that. But our gas prices are still higher than, let's say, the 80s.
Yeah.
When we were growing up in the 80s, right? A little bit of 70s for you.
All 70s.
But anyway, vehicle maintenance.
Okay.
Back in the day, we put the hot rod up. You know what I mean? We changed our own oil, all that good stuff. And we still do that. But a lot of people who have transitioned to a nicer or newer vehicle, some vehicles have to be dealer maintained, or you need scrutinized paperwork of every oil change and lubrication that you've done. So I say maintenance is another issue that, in our line of work, we're always trying to schedule an oil change once a month.
Sure, but one of the other reasons we may not see the Sunday drive as often is because while I was growing up, nothing was open on Sundays, right? It was church and restaurants, right? So now that everything is more or less open, right? It changes the dynamic on, okay, I guess we're going to Costco today. Well, you couldn't do that while I was growing up. The other thing I would say about a Sunday drive as well is, again, when we look at our weather, a lot of times we're playing into the weather. So when I mentioned Saturday or Sunday, a lot of times it's like, oh my goodness, Sunday, Saturday, another weekend of rain. So, if we have the right weather, yes, I do
Very
understand.
good point. When I was getting prepped to talk, I didn't even take in consideration. I've been alive long enough for things to start to be open on Sundays.
That's right.
So that is thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
So, we all know who the brains are.
Yeah. So with the death of the Sunday drive, we used to get a lot of foot traffic at open houses. And what I'd like to say is we would leave out our breadcrumbs.
Yes.
Our signs is our breadcrumbs. We would say, follow the breadcrumbs. Come right to the open house. People would pop in. They would say, look, we own a house, so we're not looking to buy or whatever, but this looks like a lovely home. We thought we'd pay you a visit. Oh, yeah. It's definitely plants the seed.
Of course.
Gets that conversation started. Maybe they're not happy with their current home. Okay. Maybe they love this neighborhood. That's why they're taking a drive in minutes. So I challenge everyone out there. I know that open houses are working for our team. We are still seeing foot traffic. I would say we're seeing a lot of traffic that come in that have already represented by another professional, which again is fantastic. We're glad that to hear that you've got a professional on your side. If we have a larger home, we tend to double up, have two agents there,
That's right.
just so that we're giving you the attention and detail that you need. Um, it can be tricky if it's just one sole person and it's a busy house. So
Especially if you have multiple levels. You have your basement, main floor, upper floor. Maybe it's a larger home. It's sometimes difficult when you have a handful of people coming in, like you said, to give the proper service.
yeah. So I was very interested in reading an article that came out, nationally, and we're starting, in a lot of provinces, they're starting to dial it back quite a bit.
Wow.
And it was kind of shocking to someone like us because
Yeah.
we're, every Sunday or even Saturday, I remember the days we would hold four on a weekend. Just me, I would do four. You
That's
would
right.
do four.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just boom, boom, boom. It was
Saturday, Sunday, 1
Yeah.
to 2:30, 3 to 4:30 on each day.
absolutely.
Yeah, we had caravans that we would do 45-minute to an hour open houses, and it would be just bang, 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 bang. And so, yeah, things have changed.
Yeah. So to the sellers out there, or even anyone who's thinking about selling, yes, I still firmly believe that an open house is a great tool in the realtor's arsenal to utilize. And if it's not being suggested, I think it's a missed opportunity.
I agree 100%.
So
So, yeah, so the Lost Drive on
on
Sunday.
Sundays, yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay.
And I throw it out there. What is your professional and personal opinion as well on if a client shows up and they bring their realtor? So although
Oh, yes.
I don't mind it so much,
Mhm.
we run into issues where sometimes a house is so popular that maybe the realtor schedule and the client schedule doesn't match up, and they're not able to get in fast enough.
The schedule of the home itself
Yeah.
could be fully booked. And so having the open house allows anybody, including licensed realtors with their clients, to have an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just before we started this, we talk about professionalism. So as long as the realtor is professional, I don't mind them coming through the open house. We received an offer today on a property from a realtor, and they hadn't even seen the property. So again, when we talk about professionalism, Michael and I and the team, when there are other realtors and we know that that realtor is holding themselves at a high level of professionalism, we love it. We love it. Those are the realtors that, again, that understand the importance of making sure that not only the consumer, the buyer, the seller, but of course the realtors that they work with understand that, hey, guess what? This is the type of business that we're proud to be in. And guess what? We'd love to work with and offer with that realtor. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm all for it. And when they come in, I say, "Hey, look, I've got some paperwork
Wow.
here, some sheets to go through. Here
Wow.
you go. Let your realtor take you around. Any questions, just come on back." So,
Well, let me take that and go into a segue. So
okay.
more or less that whole liability is very important. So you and I actually every year realtors have to do mandatory education. This year it's coming up, and again it'll be 2 days of Michael and I listening to, of course, professionals and instructors discuss with us different items that are, of course, integral to being good realtors and providing the right service ethically and professionally to our clients. So, saying that, I'll go off topic first and I'll say education. My daughter's finishing up her first year in university. So I thought it'd be kind of cool with us having to do our education and everything. Just try to take a look at the costs, the annual cost for tuition in Canada. And there were a couple things that I thought was quite unique. So the average cost per year is just over $7,000.
Sort of like typical
Just
university.
tuition. Just
Okay.
tuition. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, an international student is over 40,000. So major difference there.
Quite the jump.
Yes, quite the jump. And we can understand that there are different reasons why, there would be a variation. Now, here's the funny thing. So that's the average. When I look per province, the most expensive provinces per year for a domestic student, so somebody from Canada, was New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Okay. They were hovering right over $9,000. Yeah, I know. I know. So the more affordable ones are Quebec and Newfoundland. And I was a little surprised with Newfoundland and even more surprised with Quebec because Quebec over the last couple of years, they've changed the dynamics on how they charge, students. and they no longer consider a Canadian student a domestic student at this rate. If you are from the province of Quebec, yes. But if you're outside of the province and you come in, you're actually charged more now. So they're looking at ways, of course, on increasing the tuition. And again, so one of those things to keep in mind, if your son or daughter is looking at Quebec, it could be more expensive than you think, especially if you're from, somewhere other than Quebec.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So now what I thought was really neat though was when I looked at the average on the international, yes, that 40,000 isn't including everything else. When you include everything else, even for, just a domestic student, so somebody from Canada, you're probably looking 25 to 35,000, and that's food and lodging, right? Residence and everything else, and books, you've got it, everything. So you're probably looking 25 to 30,000. International would be the 40 plus, right? So I wanted to see what the averages were on just international students. The provinces, the majority of them are about half of that. So almost every province is approximately $20,000 for international. Other than one province, only one province in what I was looking at, where I was obtaining my information, was above the average, and that was Ontario at approximately 48,000. So you imagine how many international students must be going to school, higher post-secondary in Ontario to make it so that the average is even higher. So all other provinces I saw were less than the average other than Ontario.
So it's a supply and demand. So they have a large amount of students that want to study there.
More
So
schools.
you would argue they had to, more schools. They'd have to change, they had to up the price a bit to maybe.
True.
Yeah.
I think that we run into the fact that Ontario is so multicultural.
Yeah.
That many students feel more comfortable knowing that, again, that their cultures, their beliefs, and everything else will be looked at probably in a manner that they are comfortable with in Ontario. Now, between us and you, I look at some of the other areas and the schools and the campuses, and Halifax may have some, but outside of Halifax and other parts of Nova Scotia, it's just amazing, right? You look here in New Brunswick, UNB Fred, and we can go on, some beautiful campuses. And then you go somewhere like UBC and I mean, University of British Columbia it's like a little city. And I mean, the largest university for, I guess you could say for students, I believe is York. York University, I believe is the highest enrolled university in, I think, Canada. But yeah, so anyway, so education. So off the market for a moment, just talking about that, just thought it'd be kind of cool to bring in where we're doing our thing.
These are great points. I know if we went to school overseas, it would help to be part of a smaller community that, spoke English.
Right.
Maybe you're studying German. Well, it's nice to have a little bit of an English community to,
No, I agree.
So, no, great point. Or, their religious beliefs, they shut the mosques and the different, fantastic.
But human nature is that, again, you want to flock towards a culture or community that you're used to. So, I mean, I go as far as, we've been to Disney a few times, my wife and my family and I. And when we go, Epcot is our favorite park. So we go into Epcot, and of course, Epcot is made up of all these little countries, and Canada is one of them. And the people that work in that country of Canada, or sorry, in that area of Epcot, they're all Canadian. So when I go in, I'm always looking at their name tag to see is there anybody from New Brunswick, anybody from here, right, and so forth.
Yeah.
And you get excited just to see if somebody from, oh, you're from Nova Scotia. I'm from New Brunswick. It's two different provinces. But again, you feel like there's a connection just because you're Maritimers. So
No, it's true.
so I think that, again, before we put, any concern in that, I think that we as humans just like to, again, gravitate towards, communities that we know.
No, it reminds me of when we first got married, we saved up for a couple of years and we took our real honeymoon.
Okay, good.
And so when we went to the all-inclusive resort, and I'm sure they still do this, different countries have different color wristbands.
Right.
And so we knew that our color was Canadian. They
Yes.
told us that. So you see the other
That's
Canadian,
right.
and you're like,
That's right.
"Hey, where are you from?"
Yeah,
And
right.
you also get treated fairly better than.
Yeah, I thought,
Anyways.
you would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so.
Anyway, no,
Okay.
yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, well, let me go off the market. Sorry, on the market now. That was more or less off the market.
Yeah.
I'll go on the market. So I usually try to bring up something, as you know. We've talked everything from, of course, windows to, again, we've talked about roofs and everything. So today I want to mention about lighting. Okay. Many times when you're looking at improving, of course, maybe your power bill, or maybe you're getting ready to sell, or maybe you just bought. There are different ways to make your home more efficient. And lighting is, of course, just another, option that you have to look at when doing so. So I thought it was unique. Of course, we go into lighting and LED lights. All right. LED lights will save you up to 75% on your power bill compared to your normal incandescent lighting, right? So when you look at that, that's one thing. But the biggest thing about lighting as well is the fact that those LED lights will last like 25 times as long.
Yeah.
Right? You know, that chandelier that you almost have to put scaffolding up, to get to,
Yeah.
right? Or they're always, in a spot that may not be as safe, right? So there's that. But the one thing I will tell you is that when you're choosing your lighting, I always thought you had to look at the watts. Oh, it's a 40 watt. I'll save instead of using a 60 watt. And that's not the case, right? No, the case is you have to do it by lumens. And again, so when you're looking at your lighting that you're choosing, make sure you look at the lumens that the light offers. And what did you call it? Candle power?
Candlelight power.
Yeah, candlelight power. So just like speed, there's horsepower.
Yeah.
Okay. You go in and say, what's the candlelight tower on this one here? Right here we go.
Well, if you can, like you said, get the high lumens and a low wattage, well, now you've got a bright house and you're saving money.
You've got it. Now, the other thing they do mention, of course, is, of course, utilize your natural light. So again, a lot of times we may or may not really appreciate the amount of natural light that a home can offer. And so it's something else that you'd have to really just, take a look and make sure that you do what you do. And what you do is you make sure that, again, when you're looking at saving, again, watch for those LED lights to go on special. I've seen them a lot of times through MB Power. You can get them for about $1 a
Yeah.
bulb.
Yeah.
So,
They used to have to restrict how many you could buy.
That's right.
There's just only so many to go around.
That's right. And the problem is they last forever. So I think I have 300, of these bulbs just sitting in my house because we're not changing them as often. Right?
That's a fair point.
Yeah, well, I mean, beforehand, I don't think a week would go by that I wasn't changing a bulb somewhere. And you'd always pull it out while it's still hot.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I still don't have, anything on my fingers from replacing light bulbs. So anyway,
Get rid of the
That's-
fingerprints.
that's right. No fingerprints here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, you mentioned the natural light, and I know we go into a lot of homes, and I pull out the compass on my phone all the time.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, well, where's the sunset? Where's it rise? All that good stuff. So, having a south-facing feature is very important to
I agree.
a lot of buyers.
I agree.
So,
We actually have had buyers that will actually not buy homes because of the way that the house or the yard faces. So yeah, all right.
yeah, it's a shame if you have a beautiful backyard and it's constantly in the shade.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no LED lights for the backyard.
No. You can get some floodlights.
Nail some floodlights.
Well,
LED floodlights.
Yeah, they don't give off the heat. I was showing a home the other day, and as most of you know, in our area, all the snow is gone. You go up northern New Brunswick, different story.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're in the backyard, and there's a huge pile of snow. And the first thing I tell the potential buyer is I say, okay, we look at this pile of snow. What does that tell us? It tells us this area does not get the sun.
That's right. That's right.
Great for shade.
Oh.
Put the lawn chairs out, relax in the shade on a hot summer day. But to keep in mind, like I said, no sunshine is hitting.
No, I agree. I remember selling a home actually in one of my first few years in real estate, and almost same thing. There was a ton of snow in this one area. Never thought anything more about it. They bought the home, and after the snow had melted, there was a rock. I mean, it was a crater. I don't know what planet it came from or what solar system it came from, but I'll tell you right now, it was massive. It was big enough that it should have been on the disclosure because we didn't see it because of all the snow. But anyway,
What if a kid jumped into it? Hey, a snow pile. Ding. Oh,
there we go. That's right. Oh, yeah. Okay, so what do you have for me?
Well, we were talking earlier about the potential death of the Sunday drive.
Yeah.
And I was reading this article called it the death of the third place.
Okay.
And what that means is, so our first
Are
place.
you morbid today? I mean,
I know. You think it was October?
I
It
was
was Halloween. Or
brushes
something.
and education.
I know. I think my algorithm's messed up. So for so death of the third place. So
Okay.
our first place for the most people is our home. We spend a good quality amount of time at home. I hope.
Home or work?
Well, the second is work.
There we go.
So growing up, we discussed the third place where everyone kind of hung out.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned to you, like in the good old Archie comics, we talked about the malt shop.
Yes.
In the series Friends, it was the coffee shop.
Yeah.
One of your favorite shows in Cheers, it was
right.
out at the local bar.
Norm.
The whole show is about that third place.
Yes.
And so our question is, do people still have a third place?
Okay.
Now, I know you yourself, you volunteer a lot, you referee, you play hockey, you do weekly volleyball with your wife.
Yes.
You have all kinds of great places. Is there anything that you would consider your third place?
You know what? And you know what? Bringing it up, the hard part is that third place, the way that you, of course, described this, is still very important to you. It acts as, if you ask me, I guess you could say an escape. It gives you that time to, re-energize, or at least just get ready for, of course, going home, or getting ready for the next day of work. So third on, you know what? The only place I can think of is driving through Tim Hortons. I mean, that would be about,
That's
and, but again, it's no, I don't know. How about you?
I'm kind of stuck in the same,
Well,
I think we dabble into smaller things,
okay.
but we don't always have that third place. Now, this is going to sound a little geeky, but when we were growing up, we used to have LAN parties. And I think a lot of listeners would understand that, where we bring the Xboxes over to the buddy's house. We have pizza, Doritos, the Mountain Dew, everything that you stereotypically would think of.
Okay.
We plug in and we're just playing games together.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like our third place.
Well,
I have, again, my best friend growing up, to this day, like his house was my third place.
Oh, yeah.
I think I spend more time at his house than my own.
Okay.
So again, I think it's beneficial if you have something like that, because it can help separate, the work and in the home life. And if it's, let's say you've got a neighbor and every Sunday in the summer you switch, on Saturdays we barbecue, this family comes over, next Saturday it's your turn.
Well, we talked about it earlier, but when we look at different things, so, church, for many people, I would assume the church is probably that third place. It's another family for them, and I think that's great. For me, summertime, you know where I am.
Hopefully on the boat.
On the boat. Like if I can get on the boat, that would definitely be, my happy place. So I'd probably say that's where I'd want to be.
A lot of evening boat rides, because summer's a good time for business.
But I do remember there was this bar/restaurant growing up in, my early 20s. And when I was growing up and was in sports and everything else, the great thing about this place was the fact that if by any chance you were on a sport team, they actually sent somebody out with the old camcorder, so the big old camcorders, and they would film your game. So whether or not it was hockey, football, baseball, rugby, soccer, didn't matter. They filmed it, and then you went back to this place and you had, a couple pops and wings and everything else. And on the TV screen was you playing. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
You'd get up there and you'd start laughing that, hey, I fell on the way to second base or this or that. But again, it was one of those things that, again, it really brought the teams together. But it was a great idea on having that third place to go. So
I'd be screaming at the TV. I'd be like, he called me out on that play. Clearly.
we never brought the refs or the umpires.
We're going to New York for this one?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes. I get it. So I guess what I would say is that, the most important part I find about what you're saying, though, is the fact we have changed. We've now become very focused on work, very focused on home, and I get that. And most of us, if you ask people who their third place is, it's sitting on their couch or chair with their tablet. Swipe, right, and scrolling. And again, so it'd be great to,
So if we can swap out that, iPad for a Kindle or a book or
yeah,
something, you
still,
can
I
you
get
can
it.
relax and,
That's right.
feed the brain.
That's right. And here's the other thing. We'll bring everything back here. The greatest thing about, what we do is when we go into homes, we see some beautiful homes, right?
Absolutely.
We also see some that are, well, not so beautiful. Let's just say that.
Pain.
Right. But what we also do is we get to build relationships with a lot of these people. And so for Tracy and I, if you really ask me, what was really coming in my head was that I have some great friends that actually were clients of mine. And the big thing is the fact that we get together, we'll play cards, we do this, we do that, we'll make dinners. And so a lot of times I would say if I truly thought about my third place, it would be when I'm with friends at somebody's home. So I find we're doing that an awful lot more too.
Yeah.
Just again, it's safe, it's fun, and at the end of the day, for my wife and I, we just enjoy, of course, just the friendship, that we have. So it's something as well that I'm assuming some of you do, but if you do have a place, it'd be nice to know what it is. But yes,
Yeah, drop a comment while
Let-
you're clicking the subscribe button.
that's right. That's right. So as we know, spring is coming around. Team Somerville would like you to know that we are available. We'd love to be able to provide to you the level of service that you should have, the ability to have the relationship that you should have with your realtor. But at the end of the day, what's most important is that you feel good about the whole process. And with Michael and I, the biggest thing that we always say, it's not about us, it's about you. And so again, so if by any chance buying or selling is coming up, we at Team Somerville, we'd love to help you out.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for your time and lending us your ear. From all of us at Team Somerville, I'm Michael.
And I'm Tim, and you've been on Off the Market with Team Somerville.
Nailed it.
Okay.